We believe in the American way, and we built this country called the USA, and we fly our flag cause we're proud and free, we're Americans. Red, white, and blue is our way of life. We never back down from a challenge or a fight. Nature provides, God gives the rights, we're Americans. We make up America, it's amazing America. Oh, yeah.
Welcome to the Sergeant Frank Show. I'm Sergeant Frank, and my co-host is...
Bird Dog.
And tonight's guest is Renee Harrington. So, Mrs. Harrington, we met at an incredible event in Pasco County, and it was called the Spouse... I forgot what they call it exactly. It was a spouse training. What was the title of that?
The Spouses Academy.
The Spouses
it's a
Academy.
training. Yeah.
Okay. So it was the Pasco Spouses Academy, and I was very impressed that the fact that the Sheriff's Office in Pasco County takes such great measures in connecting the spouses and the community and their upper echelon in law enforcement. Now, is that something that's normal? Because I know that your husband worked at another law enforcement agency before you guys came to Pasco County. Did you guys have such a thing over there?
No, at his first agency where he spent most of, our marriage was at that agency. They didn't have anything like that there at all. It wasn't until the sheriff came over and decided that he wanted to start something for the families so that the families could network together and have a support system. So that they started that. I think this was the 6th or 7th year that they've done this. So it's relatively new. I don't know if any other agencies are doing it or not, or if Pasco is one of the few that happens to be doing it, but currently I think in this area they're the only ones.
Well, let me ask you a question. Since you guys were in law enforcement for a long time, I think you said 30 years before you came to the sheriff's office, do you think that would have helped in your situation in those 30 years, having some type of support group?
Actually, it's funny because I worked as a secretary at the sheriff's office in a different county and was going to the academy before I met my husband. And when I met him, it was a blind date, and we decided when we were going to get together that having two cops in the family would be a little bit difficult. So I thought, oh, geez, this will be easy for me. I worked at the sheriff's office, went through the academy. I know what they go through. And it was completely not what I thought it was going to be, especially the first 5 years. And I wish they had something like this many years ago, because I think it does help the spouses or significant others, because it gives you other people to talk to. Because, we try not to complain too much to them because they have so much on their plate that you don't want to bother them with. And we tend to keep all that stuff inside, and we don't have anyone really to talk to. So I think it's great to have these type of support groups. So that way, if there is an issue or you just need to vent, you have someone that you can call, and they know what you're going through because they're going through the same thing.
Well, of the ones that we have had communication with, I really think a lot of agencies haven't evolved enough at this point to realize how important that the family unit is for their deputies and their officers. And I was excited when Pasco, when Renee was talking about it at the Mrs. Harrington at the program, and how progressive that agency was, or that sheriff's office. So I don't think it's taken off enough, but I think that if we can have more shows like this and talk about this topic, maybe some of these leaders will take heed to what Mrs. Harrington is talking about, because you have the direct answer to listen to. I mean, for 30 years, you've been with somebody in law enforcement, and you've said it yourself. If you'd have had this 30 years ago, it probably would have been very helpful for you in your relationship, and probably with not only your husband, with your family members as well.
Oh, most definitely. Mainly because, like I said, and I thought it was going to be easy for me because my background was in law enforcement. Like I said, I worked at a sheriff's office and went through the academy. So I can't imagine, someone meeting someone in law enforcement, getting married, and then all of a sudden assuming the role as wife or husband to a cop because you don't realize what they actually go through. And like I said, I thought it was going to be a piece of cake. And the first 5 years were really tough. And then when you start to have children, it's even harder because, you're trying to do things to keep the kids quiet when they're trying to sleep during the day. And you're sometimes you play the role of both parents, because dad's not home all the time. So I've got to be dad and mom. And having someone to talk to because you kind of get frustrated and like I said you don't want to bring that up to them because you don't want to stress them out about oh you got to fix the toilet or something silly or something happened with the kids at school. You don't want to bother them with that because they've been at work all day and that stuff tends to build up. And I think it's great to just have a support system and know that there's other people, there's people you can contact and just say, "Hey, do you have 5 minutes to talk? Because I just need to like vent." Or are you guys, having the same issue that we're going through? And it's enlightening. I know the first one I did the first year, one of the ladies actually started a group called Badge Wives out of it. And she was so funny because afterwards she came up to me and she's like, "My husband and I have only been married about 3 years, and everything you said made me realize I'm not the only person because sometimes as the spouse you feel like you're the only person." So it really made me feel good to hear that. And like I said, now 6 7 years later she's still there and we laugh about it because she's like, "I still have your phone number from the first time," because I always give my phone number out on my personal cell phone when I'm done talking to anyone who's there, and always tell them just call me anytime, text me, whatever. And if I don't know the answer, if I can't get it, I'll try to help you.
What 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 made you take that responsibility to do that? Because handing out your personal cell phone to people you don't know, most of us would think that's kind of crazy, but that says a lot about your character.
I think it's because I I've been in like this shoes. Like I always tell people, like if you've been married to someone over 20 years in in the business, you're a seasoned. You're seasoned. Because you've been through everything. And I think it's just important because there was nobody there to say, "Hey, here's my number. If you have a problem, give me a call." And I just think it's important for them to know that, hey, I'm sincere and I mean it. If there's something you need, give me just call me. And I don't have a problem giving out my number because I'm one of those people where I'm like, if somebody's having a problem, I really do want to help them because it could, like I said, it could be something silly and trivial, but it might be something that could save their marriage or just help them at that moment get through that and realize, you know what, him not changing the diaper is not that important today, so I'm just going to let it go.
Funny listening to this because I think about, I was with my wife and I'm still with my wife, but I was with her before I got my job as a police officer. So she went through 25 years of not having anyone to talk to, other than a couple of friends. But, there was no support group and all that. And I'm listening to what you're saying. And I'm thinking to myself, man, I should have talked to her a lot more often about stuff.
Well, it's my husband. It was funny because it was probably 2 years ago at one of the spouses academy. He was listening to me talk, and on our way home, he was like, "Wow, I never realized the impact my job had on you because you never really said too much." And I said, "Well, no." I said, "I wasn't going to bother you with all that stuff." And he was like, "I thought I was doing you a favor by not telling you or sharing information." And he says, "But I didn't realize all the home stuff because if your children grow up in a family, we're celebrating Christmas twice. You may celebrate Thanksgiving twice, birthdays more than once. It just depends on their shift." And that's something that we take on a role. We don't try to bother them with that, but it's a norm for us. And sometimes, you just feel like, I just don't feel like doing that this year, but you have no choice. And you try not to say anything. And it was neat because he finally, like, after all these years, was like, wow, I never realized the stress that you got, that you went through, um, until he heard me speak. And he's heard me speak before, but sometimes they don't always listen. So this year, I guess he just happened to be listening a little bit better. So it was kind of neat because he had like an epiphany moment, like, wow, she's been through a lot, and I didn't realize that.
Well, I met your husband as well at the event, and I have to tell you, it's obvious you guys have a very strong marriage, and I think your son was there as well. And you mentioned a letter that your daughter wrote, and actually we're going to post on our website. Can you tell us a little bit about that letter?
Yes. Well, our daughter is our middle child, and she is currently 19. Um, However, when she was a junior in high school, she had wrote an essay for her English class. And I never realized, we have three children. I never really realized the impact or what they actually saw or went through growing up in a law enforcement family. And her English teacher had sent me an email, and she's like, "Have you read your daughter's essay for class?" And I was like, "No." And she sent it to me, and I read it, and I actually cried because I'll just briefly touch a few things in it. She just wrote about her youngest memories when she was little, watching her father get dressed, um, putting on his gun belt, and the sound of the Velcro, and how there were nights where she would lay in bed crying, just praying that he would get home okay. And it was just reading things like that. And she was very detailed about when he was getting dressed for work or putting on his boots. And I was like, wow, I can't believe she paid such close attention to those details, because the boys were always like, dad's got a gun, and did you shoot someone today? Or, and, or, did you put someone in jail? Or, what happened? And she never really expressed anything about that. And she never really said much. So when I read all this stuff, I was like, wow, she really remembers from when she was little until, until, like I said, she was a junior in high school, how that really affected her. And I thought, wow, I said, I wonder if it affected the boys in the same way. So, I kind of asked them, and, they're macho, and they're like, no, I never really thought about that. And that it was just one of those things. And I showed the letter to my husband, and he was like, wow. He's like, I never realized that the kids also experience, and I don't want to use the word suffer, but go through what spouses or significant others go through, and we don't realize it because we don't really sit down and say to our kids, so how do you feel about daddy's or mommy's job? I never really did that. They knew what he did. They understood it. Obviously, when you grow up in a law enforcement family, it's a little bit different upbringing. Um, but I never really sat my kids down and said, "How do you feel about it? What do you think?" So that letter was just very eye opening to myself and also to my husband.
Well, I think that a lot of people in the general public, they don't realize what it takes to be a police officer or a deputy today. They don't realize the ramifications on the spouse, and that's why I thought that letter was extremely important to publish on our website, because I don't think they realize how it affects the children of law enforcement officers and families, because my son had a situation like that years ago where he was extremely concerned about my safety. And I think it was the beginning of his teenager years. And, like you said, at first they were like, they were like, cool, he's got a gun, a police car. And then there's a certain age where our children go, hey man, this is a pretty serious job.
Oh, I agree. And I think part of the other problem that's going on right now is the way society is viewing law enforcement. And obviously, there's bad seeds and everything. But I think what's bad is that the kids now are growing up with knowing that their family member is a target. Because if you have a shirt on that says sheriff or deputy or police officer, you're almost a target now. And I think the kids are carrying that stress of the fact that, oh my gosh, when they walk out that door, it doesn't matter if they're in their police car or not. It's the fact that they're wearing that uniform. And I think what's ironically, our oldest son is a deputy. He's been a deputy for about 3 years now, and I really was pushing him to do something else. But he chose and wanted to do that. And I think it's harder for me to be a mom of a deputy in today's age than being a spouse of a deputy way back when. And I think it's because of the view, because now I'm like, geez, people have lost a lack of respect for law enforcement. And it's more scary knowing that he's just starting out and it's not what my husband started out in 30 years ago. It's changed so much. And it's sad. And our youngest wants to go into the military and be a Green Beret. So I was like, well, I can handle that, that's dangerous too. But I was like, I wanted my kids to be like a plastic surgeon and a dentist and a psychiatrist to take care of me when I got old. And I didn't get any of that. So they're all taking jobs where it's going to be more stressful for me. Um, but society has changed. And like you said, when, for show and tell, they always wanted my husband to go to show and tell because mom's job was boring. So, they liked the gun and they liked all that. But as they get older, it changes and they become more worried. And society, unfortunately, I mean, you can't go on the news without seeing a cop being shot almost every day now.
Right.
And I think the kids, something that we're trying to do too is try to get some more programs at the sheriff's office for the children, so the children have a chance to express themselves without their parents around. That was something that I had mentioned, and I think they're going to try to do that. They have so many other things that they're working on, but I had always said that would be a great program, is to offer something for the kids to have their chance to go and talk and not worry about their mom or dad being there and just being able to say whatever they want to say, knowing that it's not going to leave that room.
That's
But I
awesome.
think so. Hopefully that might be something in the future, but
Yeah, I would like to.
we'll see.
I'd like to see that program that we could take around to the other agencies that we service throughout Florida. Bird Dog, what effect did law enforcement have on your children over the years? You were a police officer for 25 years.
Well, it's funny. I was listening to what she said about her not wanting her son to follow in dad's footsteps. And it's a shame that we feel that way, but I think most cops, I mean, I pushed my kids away from it's a great career, it's a great job, it's an honorable job, but there's a lack of respect now, and we don't want our children to have to go through that. So it's a shame that it comes down. Every parent wants their kid to follow in their footsteps, but most cops
Yeah.
don't want their kids to be cops. And it's like nobody realizes what we see, what we do, what we have to deal with, and like I said, it's just a shame that we have to feel that way.
Do you think that we're affected by social media as well, being spouses and law enforcement officers? That all that bad press that we see all the time, that kind of jaded us from allowing our kids to go into law enforcement?
I mean, yeah, social media is taking over everything, and that's that. People might get mad at me, but I think social media has ruined society.
Oh, I agree, because anytime you see a clip with law enforcement and something has happened, I'll have friends, they'll post things, and I've tried to weed out my friends because I always tell them, I'm like, if you're going to be negative and hateful about law enforcement, just delete me now, because there's, I don't stand for that. But the thing with that is that they don't show the whole story. So I
Right.
always try not to jump on any bandwagon until you see the whole thing. And one thing I love that Pasco does, and I know there's a lot of agencies that do not do it, is all their deputies use body camera. And I love body camera mainly because, one, if they're accused of something and they go back and review that film, it shows the whole story.
Before body cams were popular and people were pushing for them, I actually wore one because I was a motorman and I was out there stopping people for speed and then writing tickets. And when you write somebody, a $200 or $300 ticket, the
Mhm.
only way they think that they can get out of it is by going and making a false complaint against you.
Yep.
So we had a company that had given one camera to our road patrol guys, and everybody was like, "I'm not using." Of course, anything new, nobody wants to use it. So
Exactly.
I
Yep.
was getting all these complaints, and your bosses back you up.
Yeah.
They don't think that you're out there doing that, but when a complaint after complaint after complaint comes in, they start believing the other people instead of you. So I went to them and I was like, I would like to wear that body camera if nobody else is going to. Now, my fellow motorman got really mad at me because it saved me so many times, like right away, that that
Yep.
the the sergeant bought them for every motorman, and everybody blamed me. Luckily, I was the senior guy, so I could take it. But but I think that those body cameras do a lot of great and good things. But you know what's not being shown in the media now is all the good things that people are doing, and all the people that come in and make a complaint and it's completely made up. They don't do
Mhm.
anything to these people.
No. And
So
it's
that
kind
body
of.
cam's just for one thing. It's when we make a mistake, and if we make a mistake, they
Yep.
will jump all over us.
And it's sad because you guys currently in law enforcement, I mean, you can't do anything anymore. And it's like, it's to the point where you're like, okay, I'm afraid to do something because, and people are filming it.
Hmm.
And I'm thinking, you got 10 people filming this, and here you are, you've got this guy hitting a cop, and you got all these people filming it, but nobody's jumping in to help anymore.
Exactly.
And it's just, and so I always try not to say too much until I see the whole story, because usually what comes out at first is clips of what they want you to see, and then they push their agenda, and then all of a sudden the truth comes out, and there's not much about the truth when it comes out to clear that officer, to clear the situation. And so I'm always like, now you need to come back and do a real story about what really happened, but
And
they don't
That'll
do
never
that. But
happen.
social
Yeah.
media has definitely changed a lot. I mean, like you said, anytime you go somewhere, people are filming everything.
what's the one common thing that every person in those videos are doing that nobody ever talks about? They're not listening and they're resisting arrest every
Yep.
single time. But that's
Right.
okay.
Yeah. But it's one of those things. Like, I guess I grew up in an age where when an authority figure told you to do something, you did it. Now, and I don't know if it's because society has changed so much, and everybody gets a trophy, and everybody's got to be treated the same way, and everyone's got to be invited. Everyone just feels kind of entitled, and I don't care what you say. I'm just not going to do it. And so I don't know if it's the way we were brought up.
Well, it has a lot to do with the way we were raised because we talked about this in several of our shows that when they removed prayer and patriotism from our school system, that
Yes.
was the beginning of the end of our society. And we can all point back to that day when kids are not saying the Pledge of Allegiance and not praying to God or whoever they pray to in the classroom setting.
Mhm.
There's no parameters. There's no responsibility and accountability for our students. So why? What do they have to adhere to? There's no rules. Of course, it's like going back into Animal Farm. If you read Animal Farm, it's the same situation. When you put those kids on that island, that's what happened. They went right back and they reverted back to the exact. I'm sorry, I'm confusing. I'm confusing the Lord of the Flies and Animal Farm. But the problem is in our school system. When I went to school, I went to a Catholic private school, and
Mhm.
when I was out of line, my teacher had a paddle about 3 feet long, and she reached out and touched me in places that made me listen. And I'm not saying I'm not condoning that to a degree, but at least there was a correction. And parents today, I think, have stopped being responsible for the behavior. if the parents go to school and they yell at the teacher when the kid
Yes.
doesn't behave instead of the other way around.
And you tend to like, I've always, we've always had the approach with our children's teachers, you do what you need to do and let us know, and then we'll take care of it at home also. But like you said, you have kids that do things, and then the parents go to the school and it's the teacher's fault. And like when my kids will come home and tell me something happened, I always like double check with like another parent, did you hear this or did they say this, or check with the teacher before I jump to any conclusion, because my children aren't saints either. So, but it's just one of those things where the lack of respect again comes in, and I'm sorry, but when I was growing up, if a cop told me you put your hands up, you put your hands up. You don't just stare at them or cuss them out or do whatever, because you do that, then they're automatically in their mind. I believe they're thinking this is going to be a fight.
Well, did you just see what one of the rulings a judge made about flipping off cops?
No,
It's
I
a,
didn't see that.
it's allowed. They said it's okay to do that, and that's why society's going to hell in a handbasket,
I
because you got people, idiot judges, and I'll call him an idiot because he's an idiot. Idiot judges allowing the disrespect like that, and that's the problem.
Right. And and then like you said, you have judges that say, oh, it's fine to do that. And then, then you've got to go out and do your shift and be like, well, this is great because judges and people are ruling on all these things. They're not protecting the law enforcement. And I kind of find it ironic because people complain about law enforcement, but the minute they need help, that's who they call. So
we,
I've
we
Exactly.
al-
we just
so
had
I've
this
always been
conversation today. Yeah.
yeah, I've always been like, you're going to sit here and bash law enforcement, but when you need them, who do you call? And sometimes I've tried to not go on social media and respond to things because sometimes I read stuff and it gets me going because there's like I call them Monday morning quarterbacks, but that think they know everything. So my new response to people who think they know everything is I always go, until you go to the academy, get a job and put that vest on and that gun belt and do the job and see the things that they see every day, you have no right to criticize how they reacted or what they did until you do the job. And not too many people choose to do that.
Right.
And
There's
that's
things that
how
we
I
see
feel.
that nobody should ever have to see, but we have to live with it.
Oh yes, and suffering with PTSD and all those things is real for law enforcement because you guys see the worst of the worst. You hardly see the best of anybody. It's usually the worst, and you carry that. And I know a lot of guys try to say, okay, when I leave work, it's not going home with me, but those images and some of those things do stick with you. And that's another issue that Pasco just, and I forgot the name of the program, but they just uh, started something with an organization. They're the first, not just in Florida, but in the country to do this. It's for mental and physical health for their deputies. They have a building already set up. They will have trainers. They will have nutritionists. They will have counselors, and it's something new, and I forgot the name. I wish I could remember
Well,
it.
I'm sure it's on the
Um,
website because you guys are very
yes,
progressive with your website. It's very awesomely laid
yes.
out because I was looking
So
at it the
they
other
just
day.
yeah, so they just started this with this corporation, and it is to help their deputies with physical and mental, and it's the first in the country. So they really do care about their members, their health and their well-being, and their families, and that's why they had started this. Like I said, the Spouses Academy was because they feel family is important, and the only way they can go to work and do their job is to know that their families are okay
How
at
how
home.
how sad is that in a country of 360 million people? You're the first organization to step forward to do this. I mean, how
It's
backward
funny.
Yeah.
are we?
It's funny that
Yep.
she said that because what were you talking about just today? I mean, probably 4 or 5 hours ago, Frank, about the VA and things. Tell them that.
As much as people hate I mean, for our military, the VA, at least they have the VA. We don't even have something to complain about. We don't even have anything. So law enforcement officers have zero of support.
There really isn't. Like, even when you retire and that's it. You're done.
How
And if
many
you need
times?
anything,
I mean, I like to ask this to Bird Dog, and I'm sorry, Renee, to cut you off, but
oh, it's
Bird Dog,
okay.
how many times has your old agency called to check on you in the last 4 years?
Yeah, I've been retired 4 years, and I have not received
The only
one
correspondence
phone
I
call.
got when I retired was the FOP and the PBA going, "Hey, where's your dues?" And I'm like, "How about a thank you? How about a thank you note for me paying my dues for the last 24 years that I
Yeah,
never ever used any of your legal services, by the way?"
yeah,
So instead of saying thank you or even offering me like a gold watch or something, your letter to me is, "Where's my money?" I'm a little bit in
yeah.
shock and
No.
insulted that was, and I don't want to get into this because it's just going to make me angry, but a lot of agencies don't do the right thing with their retirees. What we do is for the last, 20, 30, 40, 30 years, I could say, or 35 for some people, we become social sponges. But the problem is they don't ring us out before we retire. So we, like you said,
No.
we take it with us, and most of us take it to the end of our days. These memories,
Yes.
and nobody has an outlet for us. There's no debriefing. At least in the military, when I left the military, they actually do a medical exam for you, and they actually do like an exit situation. We don't do that in law
Yeah.
enforcement. We don't do
They
that.
don't. They don't do a lot of that for when you retire. Like, I know where my husband is currently. When there is a situation where there's a shooting, a death, or anything like that, they do a debriefing with those deputies. Um, they do have people that come in and talk to them, and my husband and the sheriff, usually on any situations that are extremely serious, go to check on them, to make sure that they're okay. And I think that's important because, they're trying to tell them, hey, we fight as one, we're one team, and they're trying to do all these things to show them that we are one team. It's not just you.
I have to.
Um,
I have to tell you something. Going on the team thing that you're talking about. There was a lady in the class that asked a question, and I think it was about like medical insurance or something, because I think you guys did a transition where you changed
yeah,
companies
yeah,
to a better company, not like my agency to went to a worse company, but that's another story. And and the sheriff was like, "I'm gonna have somebody call you," and then he caught himself and he goes, "This is my personal email. If
yeah,
email me that information and I will take care of it." And I was like, did did he just give his personal email to everybody in this room to handle a problem? And I have to tell you, I have I don't think a chief of police does that today, much less a sheriff. And I was so impressed that your sheriff did that. It blew me away. It was like being at a John Maxwell training.
yeah. He really does care. Him and my husband both, um, will give anyone their phone number, their email, whatever, to take care of anything, because they do take that very seriously, and they are really trying to take care of. Like I said, they call themselves, it's a family, because they know the importance of it. And I think it's great because they are trying to do all these different things, to make the agency better, but also to make their members better. And this new program that they're, like I said, that's going to start, it's going to be wonderful because there'll be nutritionists. I think there's a personal trainer, just there'll be mental health, counselors available, and it's going to be a building, and they can just go there. So I think it's fantastic that they're doing that. So I'm hoping that other agencies will see what they're doing and realize, the severity of, dealing with that, because, mental health is a huge issue with law enforcement, because unfortunately so many officers, do, commit suicide. They take their life, which is sad.
Absolutely.
Um, It's a horrible, horrible thing. And I think a lot of it has to do with job and family and just not learning how to de-stress. As a matter of fact, the last 2 days, they've had some training over at the college. They had a guy come in and talk about, I think it was de-stressing. But they do a lot of training opportunities for their for everyone that works at the sheriff's office. It's not just the deputies. Um, so they're trying to do all that, and it's incredible because this wasn't around. Like I said, this wasn't around 30, 20 years ago. So I think some agencies are a little bit more advanced in these things, and I think other ones are starting to catch on that, we have to offer these things in order to help them, but it also helps the family at the same time. And it's good to see that because that wasn't around, like I said, that wasn't around a
Absolutely.
long time ago. The only, the only way you got someone's phone number is if somebody on your spouse's squad was like, hey, give me a call or whatever. But it's not like what they're trying to accomplish. Where if you need anything, go to the website and go to it, and it's there, the information, and they're trying to share that with the spouses because they know. Your husband's not going to come home and tell you, oh, by the way, the insurance company's changing, or, oh, we need to fill this out, or whatever, or, where can I find that information? They don't know. They usually don't know. They go to work. They don't worry about that stuff. So,
You're right.
my past experience showed me my husband didn't worry about that stuff. I was the one that was like, okay, well, are there forms or, what do we need to do? And at least this way it's you can get a hold of it if you need it. And they're just really trying to get everyone together to talk. And this year's Spouse Academy was great because there was uh, women and men from different agencies. It wasn't just Pasco. There were few other agencies that were there, so that was really nice to see those agencies because it is open to anybody. You don't have to. They don't have to be from Pasco.
Right. I
So
thought
and
that
it
was
keeps.
very impressive also that your sheriff was open-minded enough to share that because
Yes.
that shows another huge awesome character trait on his part.
Oh yes. No, they opened it. It's usually open to other agencies. This year we just happened to have quite a few more represented, which was nice. And it grows every year because I know the first one I did, I think we had maybe 15, 20, 25 at the most. And it just seems to grow year after year. And they usually try to get some good guest speakers to come in and talk about different things. And it's enlightening because it gives us a chance to listen to somebody else's story or what somebody else has to share about their experience, and that's really what it's all about. And it's good to network because then you meet people while you're there, and you switch phone numbers or emails, and friendships are born, and then all of a sudden something's going on and you're like, hey, I know who I can call. I'm going to call her or whatever, just send her an email.
Right.
So
And even if you have a
it's awesome.
situation in one of those other cities, that might not be, that or the sheriff is or not even just the sheriff, but now you have a point of contact that you can reach out to that person and say, hey, I heard about this incident. How can we assist your agency with that? That's really great.
Oh yes, it is, and you try to help out other agencies, as much as you can. I know if something happens with someone in Pasco, I'm always asking my husband, do we need to make food? Do we need to bring them something? Is there something we can do to help them? Or and we try to do that, and then if there is, and I try to get with some other excuse me, some other individuals that I know and say, hey, so and so, this has happened, can we get together and get them some stuff? And they're really good about that. Like I said, they're really trying to help the families as much as they can. And that was something that wasn't around, years ago. And it's important. And I'm hopeful that other agencies will try to start something. It's not an easy thing to start. It takes a lot of work. Um, Alan does a great job. He always puts that together, but that part of his job is doing that. He's in charge of that area. So, it takes a lot of work to have a family support network system. But in the long run, through the years, I've seen it grow and I see where it's helping. So it's definitely something worthwhile. And I truly hope that other agencies will decide and say, hey, we really need to do something like this because it is very important.
Well, Mrs. Harrington, there is no way we can do just one show with you. You have so much more information to share with us, and I know that. And to spread the word about the great things that are going on in Pasco County, could you share the website so people could actually go look at the website and start looking at some of this information? And if they do have a question, they can probably contact somebody at your agency to get more information. So what is the website for Pasco County Sheriff's Office?
I believe, because I don't know it off the top of my head because it's like saved on my phone. I believe it's pascosheriff.org, I believe. But if they type in Pasco County Sheriff's Office, just in the Google search, it'll come up and you just click on it. But I believe it's pascosheriff.org.
I believe you're right, because I know you guys were saying there was like 4 different agencies that were actually bordering that had the same letters, and if you put the letters in, forget it. You're not going to get the right agency you're looking for.
Right, because Pinellas goes by they go by PCSO, which is Pinellas County SO, and Pasco just does PSO. Because if you do PCSO, I think it's going to come up Pinellas County. But if they type in, I believe it's pascosheriff.org. Like I said, it's saved on my phone, so I don't even have to type it in anymore.
Nice.
If not, if they just type in Pasco County Sheriff's Office and you go to the homepage, there's tons of the drop down box, and it'll show you everything. You can look up their training sections, their command staff, anything that's going on there. And there's a special link for the families. I think it says Family Support Network. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah,
but
I think you're right, because I was looking at it the other day. So, like I said, we really appreciate you being on our show today. And Adopt a Cop USA is definitely making its way down into Pasco County. We're actually doing an event at the Hudson Walmart where we're doing a bicycle giveaway. But we're not just giving bikes away. The kids have to read a book. They have to do a summary about it. And then they get assigned a fallen officer. And then they have to... Well, Bird Dog, why don't you tell them about the whole program and how they finish up with that?
Oh, that sounds awesome.
So what we did was Walmart donated a bunch of bicycles to us just to give the kids, and we were like, that's great. We can give bicycles to kids, but why don't we make them earn it? Because we want people who are earning things. So we sat down. It took us like a week to kind of fine tune it, but we figured what we'll do is we'll start the program out where we have 10 books that the school came up with the books. 10 books, they could read one of 10 books. So they have to read the book. They have to do like just a short summary. It doesn't have to be long, and just tell us about the book. So they send that to us. And once we get that, and this has already started, by the way, because we've already started getting them. Once they send us the summary, then we'll put them into phase 2 of it, which is we assign them a fallen officer's name, which is going to be put on their bicycle that they get. So they're getting that bike in honor of a fallen officer. So they have to now look up that fallen officer. We'll give them most of the information, and they have to do a Facebook video or just a little video. They can do it with their parents, their teacher, anybody, just like 30 seconds to a minute, and talk about how they would be very proud to receive a free bicycle in the name of Officer so-and-so. You know what I mean?
I love that.
And they talk a little bit about, where the officer worked and when his end of watch date was and all that kind of good stuff. So then they send that to us on Facebook, and then they're eligible for the bicycle. And then we're doing that big event at the Hudson Walmart on May 19th, where most of those kids are going to come to the Walmart. We're going to have our law dog out there. We invited the Pasco County Sheriff's Office.
Yeah, we're actually working on that to make sure that the sheriff's office got the information. I talked to the PIO the other day. He forwarded the information, and then I've also talked to some other members of Pasco. So it's actually going to be on May 18th, which is the week
18th.
Yeah, it's the 18th. I know I've said the 19th before, but it's It's the
Okay.
18th. It's my fault because I messed up the dates. It's the week after Mother's Day, and it's the week before school gets out. So right there, we want to make sure we have it all covered. And we started with actually the first name on the first bike will be Charlie Condek from Tarpon Springs. Now I know he's not from Pasco, but we wouldn't have had this availability of these bikes if it wasn't for his mother-in-law, who helped us attain these bikes to this program. So to show our appreciation and for the
That's awesome.
sacrifice of Charlie. And what's interesting is the little girl who actually received his name, her mother actually worked with him previously. So it's kind of an interesting world how it all comes back together.
Wow. Yeah, he was a very he was a great cop, wonderful man. Know his family, they're wonderful, and I think that's awesome that the first bike would be in his name. That's pretty
Yeah,
cool. So
we had to do it that way. You're right. It was just meant to be that way, you know.
yeah, that's pretty cool. So
But we're
that's
excited about this
wonderful.
program. Go ahead.
I like that. I like the fact you're making him read a book because now, I was kidding with my kids because my youngest was complaining because he was doing some research for a paper, and I'm like, you get to Google everything. I said I had to go to the library.
Or what was that other?
Exactly.
Remember our original Google? What was that? What was your Google? I can tell you what mine was. What was your original
Mine,
Mine was
Google?
card catalog.
No, there
mine
actually we
encyclopedia and
y-
Oh, the encyclopedias that they used to come to your
yeah.
house and sell them door to door. Yes.
yeah.
Can you imagine lugging all these things around? Like we should do that one day. Like we say, well, this is our Google, and we pull out these 18 books. Like there's our Google, and we had to actually
Oh yeah,
look up stuff.
I know because my kids complain. I'm like, seriously, you guys just type it in the computer and it brings it up. Like you said, we had the encyclopedia and you had to go to the library and use the card catalog. I'm like, do you even know what that is?
The
I
Dewey
mean,
Decimal System, some guy named Dewey.
yeah.
Like who is
Oh,
that guy? Can you imagine our
I
kids trying to do that?
they can't. They can't even like. They don't even know how to use a regular phone. Like they'll look at like an old phone on the wall or something. Because my parents still have old stuff and they're like, what's that? I'm like, that's a telephone. So I'm like, that's what we talked on, and it stayed in one spot, you know. And they're like, you don't push the buttons. I'm like, no, it was a rotary. It took a while
Oh
to
my
dial a
gosh.
number.
Can you
So, but
imagine?
I appreciate you guys having me on the show. If there's anything I can do in the future or help with anything, please let me know.
Well, we're going to be sending you one of our Sergeant Frank Show pendants. It's a miniature badge that says the Sergeant Frank Show in
Oh,
appreciation to you
cool.
taking our time. And we're also going to be in touch with your command staff because we Adopt a Cop USA definitely wants to make a bigger splash in your county because we really feel that because of the progressiveness of your county sheriff's office and your sheriff, that this is a great place for us to move our program because I think a lot of people are sick and tired of being sick and tired, honestly.
Oh yeah, and I'm sure they would appreciate it and love it. So yeah, definitely. And if you have any trouble getting in touch with anyone, obviously let me know and I'll let my husband know. That's what I usually tell everybody. I've always like ended my speeches. Usually I always tell everyone I was like, if your husbands are having trouble at work, just give me a call. I'll you know I'll take care of it. But if you guys need anything, because that does sound wonderful. I think it's great that you're going to have the kids like read a book. That they have to do something in order to get that. It's not just like being given to them.
Right,
They're earning it, and reading is so important. So
right,
I've met a lot of people that reading, they can't read because they just don't. So I think it's
right.
great that you're promoting that. So and I appreciate your time also.
Bird Dog, tell people how they can find us and listen to our shows and look at our program.
Well, the Sergeant Frank Show podcast is on our YouTube channel, which is Adopt a Cop USA official site. And don't forget the official site. There's a couple of different Adopt a Cop USAs out there, or Adopt a Cops. So you got to be careful. A lot of our followers or a lot of our people, when we tell them to look us up, they come back and say, "Well, I found this Adopt a Cop community or Adopt a Cop prayer group," and I'm so everything we have right now is official site. So if you like what you're listening to, You can share it. You can subscribe to our channel, which helps us if you subscribe. And then we have our website, which is myaacusa.org. That stands for My Adopt a Cop, basically, USA.org. We have our Facebook pages, which are Adopt a Cop USA official site. We have the Sergeant Frank's Bird Dog Posse, which is what that bicycle program we were talking about. That's going through that. And then we have the Adopt a Cop USA Outdoor Crusaders page. So we have quite a bit going on, and we do a whole bunch of different things for kids. And this bicycle scholarship program I think is going to be a big hit. And I don't think that we already have a couple of news agencies that want to come out as
Yeah,
well for
there's
that.
actually 2 news agencies that are going to be at the bicycle event. And then,
Oh,
what if
that's
somebody wants
cool.
to support us financially, Bird Dog? How do they help support these type of
You can
programs?
send a million or two or a billion, whatever you want to send.
Hey, make sure you put my name on there if you're doing
Yeah,
that.
exactly. To support our program, you can go to our website page. That's pretty much the only spot to do that. You go to myaacusa.org, and we have a wonderful website, by the way. And right on the main page, even if you're looking at it through your phone, there's ways to donate. You can donate, $1, $5, or a million or a billion, whatever you want to give us. And we really support the millions and the billions. But just think about how many kids that you actually can help by sending in that money. And our program is completely volunteer. Nobody's paid. And well, in fact, we kind of fund it through ourselves right now. Sergeant Franks funds most of it. But every little thing we can get really helps a lot and helps us with taking care of these children.
Yeah, and you can make donations on Facebook, and we do appreciate those. Those are great, but those take a lot. They wait about 3 months before they send us that investment. But if you make them on our website, we get that immediately. So, and we also have a raffle program on our Facebook or on our website that you could actually win a family vacation to the Florida Keys, and it's absolutely phenomenal. It's a 5-day vacation, 2 days of fishing, 2 days in Key West, and a visit to the Turtle Hospital. And you stay at the beautiful Faro Blanco Resort, which is, I call it the Bellagio of the Keys because it's very, very awesome.
And that's for a family of four, by the way.
Right.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's
So
really, really
very
awesome. So,
those raffle tickets are $10 each. And we're doing a gun raffle as well. Those are 5 each. We just finished our turkey raffle, but we're gonna have other ones. I think Sergeant Frank's working on a cell phone, like a free cell phone with like a year subscription. We're gonna try to do that for our next one.
Well, you guys have some great stuff.
well, again, Mrs. Harrington, you were phenomenal. I knew when we heard you speak, or I heard you speak at the Spouse Academy, that we need more strong female leadership in our households across America. And I really like what you said about your children and everything about supporting the family. That's what we need. If we're going to put the United back in the United States, we need more families like yours.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity. And it was a pleasure meeting you at the Spouses Academy. And like I said, in the future, if I can help with anything, please, don't ever not, don't hesitate to contact me, and I'll try to do whatever I can.
Thank you again
Don't
very
tell
much.
Sergeant Frank that.
It's 2
He'll
in the
call you.
morning.
Yeah. What are you calling me for?
Yeah, no, I met her husband. I won't do that. He's a pretty big dude, man. He's a little scary. I don't want him to beat me up. He's a pretty
Everyone is
big
so
dude.
afraid of him, but he's just intimidating. I think it's from being in the military and being a cop his whole life. But he's a really nice guy, and
He
he
has
really
the
does
most
care. But
stern. I
he is
thought the
very scary. So
bird dog does this thing where it's called mean mugging, and I think there would be a close contest between your husband and the bird dog with the mean mugging contest. We're gonna have to do one day just to see who has the
that'd
meaner
be funny.
mug.
Yeah, everyone's afraid of him, but his children. So but everyone tells me that they're like, he's so scared, and I'm like, he's so nice. He's a nice guy. He just looks at, like I said, I think it's just from being in the Marines and being a cop.
Well, we
So,
need that command staff, and we need that command presence, at
oh,
at this
definitely.
level and at any level, to regain the support and the the perception of law enforcement has to be authority first and then friends later, because sometimes you don't have time to explain why we're telling you to get down because there's bullets on
Yeah.
their way for you. So just get down. We'll explain it to you later. So again, Mrs. Harrington, thank you so much. Bird Dog, phenomenal.
you.
Thank you for everything you do behind the scenes.
Signal 33 shooting, 100 block East MLK, 100 block East MLK. All units 1051. Getting an update, we have a 10-year-old male lying on the ground with a gunshot wound, unknown exactly where, unable to verify breathing. Delta 14, 1048.
Listen, young one, it's not cool to be a thug. There is nothing good about going selling drugs. The money don't mean nothing when you're harming everyone.